Great. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you. You're good.
Cool. Thanks. So I just got a new computer, so I've been screwing with the settings and stuff.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Anyways, welcome to episode 6 of the podcast. Today we have 98.5 the Sports Hub's own, the legend himself, Alex Barth, as well as the host of Catch 22 podcast. Thank you for coming on today, Barth. And yeah,
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
no problem. Barth, why did you want to get into the media sphere and what made you fall in love with sports? That's my first question for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've always been a sports fan. I grew up here, and I was kind of growing up. I was 6, 7 years old when the Patriots won in 2001. So it was kind of just the perfect time. Like I grew up as this whole ascension happened, and what made me want to get into media, honestly. So when I was a freshman, I tried out for the freshman baseball team. I didn't make it. I was the only person who didn't make it. And the coach felt bad. So he kind of called me into his office. And he's like, hey, we need somebody to announce the games on the local access TV channel. Do you want to do that? And I was like, yeah, might be fun. I had friends on the team. I'm like, make fun of them on the broadcast when they strike out or whatever. So I started doing that, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I thought I was kind of good at it. So my school had like a TV media elective. I took that, started doing some more there. And, then I started announcing other sports, starting my sophomore year in football and basketball and things like that. And it all just kind of took off from there. So I'd always been a fan of sports. Knew I probably was never going to play them at a high level. So it was, another way to stay involved. And I also just like the conversation part of it. I enjoy being, I get to talk about sports all day, and it's not too bad. Like I can't complain compared to a lot of other jobs. So
That's crazy. I mean, the kind of same thing kind of happened to me. I got cut from the basketball team, became a basketball announcer. Now I announce some football. It's
there you
a
go.
fun job to do. Play by play, sometimes color commentary. But yeah, very fun profession. Whether it's talking about sports or just be a commentator.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's really cool, and there's so many different things you can do within it too. Like there's play by play, right? Hosting shows, like you're doing a podcast now, and it doesn't get repetitive, which is I think my favorite thing. Other than the fact that it's about sports, is that there is routine, but there isn't, and no 2 days are the same, which keeps things fresh.
100% Alex Barth. A second question for you is, what is your advice for people who want to come up into the industry, and what was your inspiration to do sports radio / sports journalism?
So my advice would be one, just you have to be willing to put up with the lifestyle. It's a lot of nights, it's a lot of weekends. You don't make a lot of money right away. So you're sacrificing some in your personal life and your social life. But at the end of the day, if it was easy, everybody would do it because it is such a fun job. The other thing is don't say no. Like don't let no be in your vocabulary. Whatever opportunities you get, you never know which one's going to be the right one. A lot of this is just being in the right place at the right time. I got my job at the Sports Hub because I was working like 6 or 7 part-time jobs, and they all just sort of converged. Like I got the Sports Hub gig in part a little bit because of each of them. So you can have your favorite thing that you want to do if you want to do play-by-play, or you want to work in baseball or whatever, basketball or football. Like that's good. You should definitely have a preference, but also you need to be willing to go outside of that preference, because one, it's just hard to stay in the industry. So if you don't end up doing exactly what you want to do, but you're still doing sports media, like that's a win for a lot of people. And you never know what will bring you back. Like I always wanted to work in football. Football is my favorite sport. I didn't really have a job in football like my first 5 years out of college. I started off working mostly in baseball, and then I worked in hockey a little bit. So, but I would not have gotten the job I have now covering the Patriots had it not been really, especially for that job working for the Lowell Spinners, the old Red Sox minor league affiliate. So, and I always wanted to do play-by-play. That was like what I started off wanting to do. And then I kind of realized as I went, hey, radio hosting, reporting, I can do this. I don't hate it. Like I enjoy doing this, and then there's more realistic path. If I was going to do play by play, I would have had to leave the area. I would have, not had as much job stability. And it was like, if I'm going to do this, which I also enjoy doing, I never thought I would do it. Like, I never thought I'd be a writer. I was a horrible English student in high school. But it was like, all right, here's a path for me to do this. I can stay in Boston, which I wanted to do. I can, have a little more job stability, have more of a platform, have a bigger platform. So I was willing to pivot, and I was kind of nervous about it at the time, but it ended up being like one of the best decisions I ever made. So just be willing to go outside your comfort zone, because you never know. The worst thing is you try something, you hate it, you stop, right? But you never know what opportunity is going to be the right one.
100%, Alex. I'm pretty sure, at least on your LinkedIn page, you went to Sharon High School, which is about 10 or 15 minutes away from
Yeah.
my home. What did you think about high school play-by-play broadcasting as well as college broadcasting if you ended up doing it?
Yeah, so I mean, high school is fun. I that was just so great because like all my buddies were on the teams, right? They were on the football team, the basketball team, the baseball team. So like I'll still have like one of my best friends since like growing up hit a walk off on senior day, our senior year, and I got to call it. So I mean, we'll still talk about that play and that call sometimes. So that was just like a really good experience, and it was a great way to learn because there's no pressure, right? And I think a lot of people, when they want to start doing this, are nervous because people are nervous about public speaking. People are nervous about being on camera, and I get that, but it's also like, man, if your friends are going to judge you for doing something like that, like if you're worried about that, you're not going to make it in this industry because there's so much more you got to deal with down the line in terms of people, and eyeballs on you. So it was fun to just be able to do it and kind of let loose. And then in college, just, doing it in a professional environment. And it kind of, made me convinced that it was what I wanted to do. I went to Ithaca College, which is a D3 school. So we got really hands on opportunities to cover the team. We did full TV and radio broadcasts game to game. We get to meet with the coaches for football. We go to practice. We went on the road with them, things like that. So knowing what it was like to be immersed in that lifestyle, and still do it was, kind of, all right, this isn't just something I was doing in high school because I thought it was fun. This is actually something like I'm willing to take the steps to do professionally.
Great story right there. Kind of branching away from the media questions,
Yeah.
but football, the draft just happened. Your main position at 98.5, the Sports Hub, is the NFL draft, and breaking down the Felger and Maz big board.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Patriots selection of Will Campbell? And do you think the Patriots should have gone Abdul Carter instead? Because, they already got Harold Landry. That would be a pretty dominant defensive line with Barmore as well.
Yeah, I think Campbell was a good pick. I think uh, Drake May is their best asset right now. Like Drake May is the best thing this franchise has going for them. So I think what's best for the football team is doing what's best for Drake May. And what's best for Drake May was getting somebody who can actually block for him because that offensive line last year was a problem. So Will Campbell will do that. If Abdul Carter had been on the board, I think he's a better prospect, and that would have been great. But they weren't picking high enough to take him. He goes with the third overall pick. They were picking fourth. And I think what they would have had to give up to move up to get him would not have been worth it. Because you look at the package the Jaguars gave up, right? They sacrificed quite a bit. And the Patriots, like, they could absolutely use a player like Abdul Carter, but they need multiple great players. And, moving an extra first round pick, I just don't think Carter, as good of a prospect as he was, and yes, him, Landry, some of the other pass rushers they have, it would have been a good duo. I don't think it would have been worth giving up what they would have had to give up to trade up.
I'm a Giants fan personally. I'm Boston sports for every other team, but when Abdul Carter's getting comparisons to Lawrence Taylor, I mean that's obviously great company to be in outside of the criminal part, but
Yeah.
definitely we'll see if Will Campbell is a good left tackle in the NFL or not. Next question, which is also Patriots related. Stephon Diggs was the biggest free agent signing for the New England Patriots so far, or this free agency. How will Drake May play with Stephon Diggs, and how is his play style going to adapt with Stephon Diggs, who's more of a deep route guy?
So that's a good question because we have to see what Stephon Diggs looks like coming off the torn ACL. Sometimes guys change how they play, and he's now over 30 as well. So where's his explosiveness at? They used him more in the slot and as a shorter intermediate guy in Houston before he got hurt. Now, they had Nico Collins, so they didn't need a deep guy. So is he going to go back to that, which is a role that certainly exists in Josh McDaniels' offense? Are they going to play him on the boundary as an X? I think the biggest thing for Drake May is wherever Diggs lines up, whatever level of the defense he's running routes at, he creates separation. And he's going to give Drake May, he's going to get open quick. So May's not going to have to hold the ball. That's part one. And he's going to give him, open windows to throw into. He's not necessarily going to have to thread the needle constantly as much as he did last year. So I think his play style mixes well with Drake May. I also, they need to be better after the catch. It's something Diggs had been good at in the past. This is one where, again, you look at it and where's his explosiveness at? How well is he cutting? How well is he moving post knee injury? But I think that's if they can tap into that part of his game as well, it would certainly help.
In my opinion, the biggest problem with the Patriots is that if you look at the wide receiver group, there's like a lot of question marks. We have Kendrick Bourne, or I don't know if he's still on the team, but
Yeah.
obviously you got Jalen Polk, you got Javon Baker, we got Demario Douglas. Demario Douglas is a probably decent wide receiver, but the rest of them are question marks. So if Stephon Diggs comes down, what will happen?
You mean if he's like not playing well?
Yeah.
I think it's probably more on the plate of their third round pick, Kyle Williams. And I think he's going to play a good role to begin with, but he's stylistically similar to Diggs. So they're going to handle a lot of the same responsibilities. So if Diggs can't go, if he's clearly taking a step back, or if he's just not on the field because the rehab's taking longer than expected, I think you look at Kyle Williams stepped into a bigger role. Pop Douglas is going to be in the slot, like he'll be there. And then the big question, if it's Williams at the X, who's at the Z? Does Jalen Polk get another shot, or do they move Williams there? And is it Mac Hollins or Kayshon Boutte at the X? They'll basically have a competition between the two draft picks last year and Kayshon Boutte and maybe Mac Hollins, and one of those guys will step into a bigger role.
We'll see how all that ends up going on. And next question is also about the Patriots and their draft. Trayvon Henderson, is he the next running back star in the league? Is he the next Pro Bowler, or will he be like a Sony Michel type of guy? Guy has one good year and then flames out.
So somewhere in between. Henderson has home run ability. He can be a big play threat, but I don't think he's a guy you want touching the ball 250, 300 times a year. Like, he's going to be a spellback. He's going to be somebody, I think he'll get more carries than Ramondre Stevenson, but, like 60-40 split. He's not going to be somebody who has a, usage number like Derrick Henry, who never comes off the field. So, in that sense, do you need to do that? Saquon Barkley to be a star running back? Maybe, but I think he can be a big impact player. I think he's going to be, they've needed a big play threat. They needed speed on offense. He can do that. I think he'll be somebody that is one of the better running backs in the league. I think he has that potential, at least, if he stays healthy. But I don't know that he's ever going to be the guy that's like, leading the league in rushing, because I just don't think they're going to use him that way.
I think you just brought out there, like, he might not be like the most elite running back, but I do feel like you need him to be like at least a 1 or 2 time Pro Bowler. Like, drafting a running back this high is kind of unusual these days. I'm pretty sure he's the second running back off the board behind Gentry. So I do feel like there's a lot of expectations behind his back.
Yeah, there were a couple more. Marion Hampton went in the first round, and then Quinshon Judkins, his teammate, went a few picks ahead of him. But
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, if he can be an impact player, like, that's what you're looking for. You want to measure that in Pro Bowls. You want to measure that in, just looking at the statistics and where is he statistically compared to similar backs, especially when you're looking at, averages by carry or by catch, because, again, he might not have the volume at some of those other guys. You do want him to be, you're taking a running back that high. You do want him to be a transformative player. You don't just want him to be a chain mover. You want him to be a guy that's putting the ball in the end zone. I think they're going to put him in a position to do that. And I think part of what makes him good, like, James White never made a Pro Bowl because he played kind of just situationally. He didn't play like a traditional running back. James White was a really good football player. And I think if you get somebody who can make the impact of a guy like James White, maybe a little bit more with that pick, that would be a win, especially in this draft that was kind of a down draft. So is he somebody that defenses have to game plan for? Is he somebody that changes the way defenses put out their coverages, whether it's the actual alignment or the personnel? When Travion Henderson's on the field, their defense is taking a linebacker off for a safety because they feel like they need that speed on the field, things like that. That's what you're looking for with the impact. Pro Bowl would be great. I just don't think Josh McDaniels has never been big, or he's always been big on making sure he doesn't overwork his running backs. And the last few years, Patriots have overworked Ramondre Stevenson. It's been a problem. So now that Josh McDaniels is back, I think there's going to be more of an emphasis on that. So I don't know that Henderson will necessarily get a chance to put up like Pro Bowl numbers, but I think he can be an impactful player when he's on the field.
I mean, if we get James White out of him, I mean, James White was, besides from Brady, the MVP for Super Bowl 51. So if we can get like a James White type of career out of Henderson, that'd be great. Obviously, I'm a Giants fan, but obviously I don't hate the Patriots, so I do root for them like when they're not facing the Giants. But anyways, the main story for the NFL draft this year, or the main national headline, was the fall of Shedeur Sanders. Why do you think this happened, and do you think he'll play well in Cleveland?
I think a couple of reasons. There's a lot of reporting out there right now that he wasn't great in his meetings with teams, and that's so important for quarterbacks because they want to see what you're going to be like in that meeting room. Where you need to be a leader, you need to be a teacher, you need to be an extension of the coaching staff. I'm not saying Sanders can't do that, but it doesn't sound like he showed that ability in those meetings, which is obviously going to make an impact. On top of that, I think that in a league that's prioritizing arm strength and mobility, Sanders is more of a traditional pocket passer, and that can work. We saw it with Bo Nix last year, but you combine those things, and there weren't that many quarterback needy teams in a down class. I think a lot of teams are ready to push the quarterback needs next year. It just kind of collectively slid his market down. I don't feel great about him in Cleveland, but the reality is I don't feel great about anybody in Cleveland. I just think that's a really bad situation. I don't think it's set up well for Dylan Gabriel. I don't think it's set up well for Kenny Pickett. I don't think it's set up well for him. Like I would not be confident in any quarterback there because they have a coach that should be on the hot seat and a GM that should be on the hot seat making big time long term plays that they really shouldn't afford to be making. The roster's bleeding talent. It's not a good situation for anybody, whether it had been Shedeur Sanders, whether it had been Jackson Dart, whether it had been Cam Ward. Any quarterback that landed there, I would have said I don't feel great about.
I mean, we saw about 10 years before Johnny Manziel went to Cleveland. We all know how that went out. Even Baker Mayfield couldn't succeed in Cleveland. He had to go to Tampa Bay to become a Pro Bowl quarterback. My next question, I'm a Giants fan, as I mentioned before. Jackson Dart, see the next Josh Allen, or will he be the next Daniel Jones, be a mobile type of quarterback, but not good enough for the pros?
I think he's a little more Zach Wilson than Daniel Jones if we're going to talk about failed New York quarterbacks. A little bit more explosive play style, but a little bit more erratic. I wasn't super high on Jackson Dart. I thought, I would have taken Jalen Milroe or Will Howard over him. That's just me personally. I think his skill set translates really well to the college game. Lane Kiffin's offense was an excellent fit for him. I just don't know how much those concepts are going to translate at the next level. He has Malik Neighbors, which helps, and that's going to help him get along. But I just don't. The boomer bust quarterbacks in college, you can't really play that way in the NFL. Josh Allen is a big time anomaly in that. So and Allen had Stephon Diggs for a long time, and so Neighbors is going to have to be Diggs for him to have success. But I do wonder if there's a cap on that because just generally those guys, the mistakes are. Even if the successes outweigh the mistakes still prove to be too many to overcome.
So you're telling me my Giants, got the next Zach Wilson.
Yeah, Zach Wilson. Well, like that's one comp. I'm trying to remember who my other comps were for Jackson.
My Giants are close.
I do the draft. I have all this information in my head, and then it all just flies out. Well, not necessarily. So you're probably. I don't know if you remember this. One of my favorite quarterback strategies I ever saw a team do was in 2010. The Carolina Panthers, I think it was 2010 if I remember correctly. The Carolina Panthers needed a quarterback, but it wasn't a great draft for them to take a quarterback, kind of like this year with the Giants, right? So they kind of split the difference, and they took Jimmy Clausen on day 2. He was a quarterback for Notre Dame. He had won a ton of games. He was, big time college quarterback, but there were questions about him transferring to the NFL. And they took Jimmy Clausen, and the idea was basically, hey, if Jimmy Clausen's good, we stole our quarterback in the 4th round. And if Jimmy Clausen's not good, we're going to suck and we're going to be picking at the top of the draft in a much better quarterback class. Jimmy Clausen sucked. The next year, they picked 1st overall, and they draft a guy named Cam Newton. So, maybe that's the path for the Giants. Maybe Jackson Dart is good. Maybe he figures it out. Malik Neighbors helps, and they're off and running. if Jackson Dart's not good, and I don't think they're getting much out of Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston either, well, now next year you're back at the top of the draft in what many people think is a much better quarterback class. And now you really get to go get your guy, probably with a new coaching staff and GM.
Damn. So this just in, the Giants has got the new Jimmy Clausen. That's actually heartbreaking. But
Well, but if it
anyways,
means you get the next Cam Newton, is it worth one? Will you put
Arch
up with 1
Manning,
year Jimmy Clausen?
that Nico kid. I mean, those are two very I know you studied the draft, so I heard
Yeah.
Nico and that Manny kid are supposed to be really good. So
Yeah, I like that. I'm iffy on Nico. I like if he comes out. Sam Levitt from Arizona State's really good, but he's a junior. Obviously, like Arch Manning, Drew Aller. These are some of the guys that are getting talked about. There's a lot more names in next year's class. Lenore Sellers from South Carolina. There's more options there.
Arch Manning for the Giants, that would be absolutely amazing. Anyways, over the past 10, 15 years, the Patriots, they've not been the greatest at drafting players. I mean, we got Sony Michel, we got N'Keal Harry, you got Isaiah Wynn. Who do you think is the worst pick the Patriots have made under the Belichick era and going into this year?
Who was the worst pick Bill Belichick made? I would say. I would say N'Keal Harry. I don't think he was ultimately the worst player, and he was pretty bad. Like they took some guys that were out of the league in 2 or 3 years. If we're just talking about first round picks, right?
Yeah,
What made the N'Keal Harry pick so devastating is if they get AJ Brown or DK Metcalf or one of these guys became a stud. Terry McLaurin, that's the guy I always thought made sense for them in that draft. As much as people want to talk about how good DK was, Terry McLaurin was such a them guy. He was a team captain, 4-year starter, played on special teams, right? He wasn't out of the ordinary for them to draft. If they had hit on a receiver, does Tom Brady stay? Like
I think he
part of the
does.
reason you have to think Tom Brady left was because the offense was kind of imploding around him and he wanted a better supporting cast. If they hit on a first round receiver who's actually the caliber of a first round receiver, does Tom Brady's 7th ring come in New England instead of Tampa? So that to me is the most damaging because I feel like there's a direct line between that pick and Tom Brady leaving.
100% the butterfly effects right there.
Yeah.
Also, Sony Michel over Lamar Jackson. That's also a pretty bad pick. Also, you got some pretty other bad picks. But yeah, N'Keal Harry is definitely the worst pick for me. Could have had AJ Brown. How long have you been at the sports hub, by the way?
So I started on the promotions team in 2017, and I got my current job in 2020.
Over your 8 years at the sports hub, what would you say is your favorite story, and why do you think that way?
What was my favorite story? I covered the Super Bowl when I was still covering the team for CLNS. That's obviously my favorite thing I've ever done. The last Super Bowl against the Rams there. My favorite story at the Sports Hub. I mean, just some of the drafts I've covered. I would say last year's draft, and obviously it wasn't a good draft for the Patriots, but just kind of from the beginning, saying Drake May was the guy and carrying that all the way through and hitting on that one. And it was a fun quarterback class. Getting to cover the Celtics championship last year was super fun. That was one of my favorites as well. Those are probably. Oh, I was on air when Tom Brady retired. That was cool. I was on the air when Tom Brady retired. That was
First or
a very
second
cool
time?
experience because I've had people like I had friends texting me like, "You're the reason I found out. Like you're the one who told me." So that was pretty wild.
Was that the first or second time?
The first time. The
First
second
time.
time, I think I was on my couch eating dinner. Oh no, the second time I was asleep because I had covered the Shrine Bowl in Vegas and I got back at like 2 in the morning. So I told them, I'm like, hey, like I'm gonna clock in late today. I need to catch up on sleep. And I wake up and I have a million texts. Boom, Tom Brady retired.
That's a pretty crazy sequence of events. Sleeping on one night drunk in Vegas, and then the next day, Tom Brady retires. The biggest story of all time. The GOAT himself, and yeah, must be crazy to be on the air for those stories. Indeed. All the Super Bowls the Patriots have won over the years. Keep one of them. 49, 51, or 53.
49, 51. So just from the second half of the dynasty.
Yeah.
Well, I
Rams,
mean,
Falcons, Seahawks.
yeah, so 2018, 53 was my first year covering the team. So getting to cover a Super Bowl and just getting that in before obviously they took a step back, I wouldn't want to remove that one personally because then I wouldn't have gotten to cover a Super Bowl. But I mean, objectively, you've got what is probably the greatest game in NFL history in Super Bowl 49, and then the greatest comeback in NFL history in Super Bowl 51. I can't be selfish and remove one of those just so I get to say I covered a Super Bowl. So it has to be 53, but that hurts.
Definitely one of the more boring Super Bowls. I mean, final score was 13-3. I mean, although Stephon Gilmore and Gronk's two amazing performances, it was a very memorable game because that was one of my favorite first Super Bowls I ever watched. So yeah, even though it was kind of boring, I do feel like it was sort of memorable in a kind of weird way. Um, the station you work at, 98.5 The Sports Hub, it kind of takes a more negative stance when it comes to Boston sports. Why do you think like Bostonians are more negative towards their sports teams compared to other markets like in New York, Washington, all those type of markets?
That's a good question. I think some of it is just the standard is so high, right? It's really championship or bust here. Like Knicks fans are ecstatic they're going to the second round of the playoffs. Celtics fans like it barely register. Like, all right, wake me up when we get to the conference championship, right? So I think that's a part of it. It's not necessarily negative. It is and isn't negativity, but like it's a high standard. And when the teams take a step back, they're still measured against that standard. People here don't have time for tanking and rebuilds and things like that. It's why are you not contending for a title now? So when you have the Patriots going through a rebuild, the Red Sox going through a self-imposed rebuild, the Bruins are going to go through one now. People just don't want to do that because they know what the top of the mountain looks like and they just want to be there. So I think it's just, I think it's just the success. And people say it was miserable before they were winning. I don't really remember that, but I think now it's about having such a high standard.
Yeah, for sure, Alex. I mean, I remember like 5 or 6 years ago when that Patriots had that first season without Brady, 2020, I think. It was pretty crazy listening to sports radio, like hearing the Patriots lose and stuff. Very unusual to see it indeed.
Yeah, it was an adjustment for sure.
Yeah, especially while watching Cam Newton. Anyways, there's a there's been a very viral question that's been going on social media for the past week and a half, and it's 100 people versus one gorilla. How would you answer that question, and why do you think that way?
I'm going with the gorilla. They're strong,
100
man. They're
people
they're what's up?
versus 100 people.
Yeah, I'm taking the gorilla. I'm not saying that the people wouldn't do damage. Like the gorilla's not walking out of there smiling, but those things are so strong, so fast, so big. I don't know because you can't 100 people can't fight the gorilla at once. There's just not enough space. Like, how many people can you really surround the gorilla with? Like 10, 15, maybe? And so it's really about like waves. So the gorilla's going to have a chance to kind of narrow it down and go through a couple people at a time. And again, those things are just so powerful. It'd be close. It'd be close. You go to 150, I might take the people, but I've been team gorilla the whole way. I've heard some good arguments for the people, but I've been team gorilla the whole way. I'm not altering off of that. I'm not changing my mind.
Okay, Alex, what if scenario? The front lines have Dwayne The Rock Johnson, John Cena, Rob Gronkowski, Floyd Mayweather, and Dustin Poirier. Are you choosing the gorilla?
That might help. Although Floyd Mayweather, he's a defensive fighter. I don't know how well that's going to work against the gorilla because the gorilla's going to have much bigger reach than anybody he's fought in his career. That would probably help. You can do a little more damage, but a gorilla's what is it, like 4 or 5 times the strength of an average person. So it would be closer, but I still think I'm taking the gorilla.
Prime Arnold Schwarzenegger too. I mean, like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you got like a bunch of like UFC fighters and well, because there's a balance. You can't just take like the strongest people because like if you just went with like bodybuilders, do they know how to fight? And like
usually
just
no.
fighters, are they strong enough? So you would need like a mix. You really need like UFC fighters and pro wrestlers and things like that. maybe if you put together the right team, you could do it. But it would have to be like the right group of people, not just 100 random people.
We'll see how that happens next week on the YouTube channel. So yeah, stay tuned in. Anyways, I have three more questions lined up for you before I'll let you go.
Yep.
The first out of those three are over your years at the Sports Hub. What has been your favorite sports memory besides from or really outside of the Sports Hub your entire life? What has been your favorite sports memory, and why do you think that way?
I mean, my favorite sports memory was getting to cover a Patriots Super Bowl for sure. Having grown up a fan of the team, unreal experience. Getting to stand on the 50-yard line at the stadium down in Atlanta, people throwing confetti. That was unbelievable. Besides that, my favorite memory would be Super Bowl 36 or 49. And then I was at John Lester's no hitter. That's up there as well. Just those kind of moments, I would say, are my favorite sports memories.
Second of the last three, at the Sports Hub, there's like a lot of the interesting conversation. I mean, obviously, we obviously love to talk about the four Boston sports, but obviously, there's also some wrestling talk. You got some soccer talk. The very interesting variety of sports. Outside of the four major sports, baseball, hockey, football, and basketball, what is your favorite sport and why?
Well, so I don't know if college football counts here. I love to talk about college football. Nobody at Sports Hub wants to do it, or not like, it's not a big thing here in the Northeast, but I love talking about college football. But like overall, besides those four, I would say it's probably golf, just because I enjoy watching it. I enjoy playing it. I'm not very good at it, but it's, like the Masters last week. That was awesome theater. That was great. So I would say golf.
My opinion, it's got to be either boxing, bodybuilding, or golf. Golf's definitely a very fun sport to play. Not the most fun sport to watch, at least in my opinion. Obviously, I think you have a different opinion right there, but yeah, very fun sport to play, even if you're bad at it, like me.
Yeah, I mean it's there's you'll see when you get a little bit like you take that nap on Sunday of the Masters, you wake up, the leader's on the back nine. It's a great feeling. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, especially when Tiger Woods is up there, greatest golfer of all time. No one can dispute it.
Yeah.
Anyways, last question for today's podcast before I'll let you go. Um, where can I buy this t-shirt?
Yeah, that's been going around. I don't know where that came from. I should probably be merchandising that, right? You'd have to make it yourself at this point. As far as I know, nobody is making them. But if you do make one, get two made, and I'll buy one from you. All right.
All right, bet. Or you can just sell it, or you can convince the 98.5 the Sports Hub executives to put that on the merch store if you guys have one.
Yeah, I might have to bring that up.
Yeah, bring that up at the next office meeting. But anyways, thank you, Alex Barth, for coming on today's podcast. And yeah, if you have any final words or any social media you want to plug.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Real Alex Barth on all social media.
Thank you for coming on, Alex, and have a great rest of your day. I'm gonna end this meeting, and yeah, thank you.
Happy to do it.